This guy I was having dinner with the other night, we got talking about desserts, and he did dessert rankings.
I like apple desserts, straight down the middle. Apple pie, apple strudel, apple, whatever you can give me with apples.
He's English, and he's claiming like the English have great desserts. He said Italy does not have very good desserts.
Neither does China. China has terrible desserts.
Japanese have good desserts because they have good everything. You know, they have the best pizza places in the world.
It's not easy to find good croissant or French baking in Switzerland or on the German side.
The Germans don't do desserts well. They're not great in dessert. Anywhere in Northern Europe, they're more industrious. They're not dessert people.
You know, I was thinking about the difference between, because the backdrop of this is I was on vacation. I was skiing in Switzerland.
Is this a back-to-back vacation? Is there a name for that? The back-to-back vacation?
I can't get home because of all the snow in New York. So then I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in Zurich or am I going to get out of it? Well, how do I make the most of this? And my daughter is in Dublin. So I flew to Dublin to see her and she was delighted. And it's been so fun hanging out with her.
Did she like Dublin?
She loves it, yeah. But the weather is truly oppressive. It's just kind of gray always. But the thing is that it's lightened by the wonder of the Irish people. The people are the best. And so, like, if you, like, Zurich
Troy, I'm 100% Irish.
Well, that's maybe why I like you so much. The interesting thing, and I don't mean this to sound sort of in any way slanderous, Zurich is perhaps the most beautiful city. Like, it's a very beautiful city. It's got the lake. It's got wonderful transportation. It's very clean. It's a really nice place. Except that all the people around you feel like NPCs. It's like they just don't engage. They're these sort of neutral Swiss like German automatons, as opposed to Ireland, or Dublin, which is also, you know, an okay mid-sized city. It's a lovely city. But the people make up for it. They're so warm.
Yeah. Well, once you get to know the Swiss Germans, they'll invite you to their sex dungeons. Don't worry.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's just not an immediate thing. That's actually going to come. Sex dungeons will come up later. Speaking of that, is Alex joining us?
No, I think he's stuck in his sex dungeon.
Okay. Well, we might as well get started then. AB is going to be coming by to talk about private credit, which I don't really totally understand. So I will keep it very vague. Welcome to People vs. Algorithms. This is a show about detecting patterns in media, technology, and culture. Troy squeezed this in from his vacation. There we go.
You know what that is? They're telling me that they're going to try to help me with the noise. I got to take this. Can you just pause? It'll be funny.
No, I understand.
It'll be funny. It'll be full. Okay. Hi, guest experiences. How you doing?
I hope Troy's nice to them.
The noise is insane. Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, if you could just do a moratorium for 1 hour, oh my God.
We have a podcast. Tell them it's a podcast.
I'm recording a podcast. I know it sounds ridiculous, but...
No, it doesn't sound ridiculous.
The room's awesome, by the way. And you also left me a ganache, which was very thoughtful. You think the fifth is better? The thing is, I'm already on the podcast. I'm going to just try it. You know what? I'm fine. I'm going to wait I'll see how this goes for the next half hour, and I might take you up on it. This is a disaster, okay? You guys are the best, okay? Irish hospitality. Thank you. Okay.
Irish hospitality.
Thank you. Bye.
I don't know if the Irish are, I don't know if that's the rep of the Irish to be great at hospitality, honestly. Maybe. They're good at, like, you know, storytelling and whatnot, but
they're proud of this guy. Look, I found this postcard in the drawer. Do you know who that is? There's a statue of him outside of the hotel.
No.
Thin Lizzy. His name is Phil Lynott from a band called Thin Lizzy. You remember that band? That's like your generation, Brian.
Interesting.
Do you know what Thin Lizzy's greatest hit was?
No.
You know the song "The Boys Are Back in Town"?
Oh yeah,
1976. That was Thin Lizzy.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was a band, not a person.
It is a band, but this is the dude.
AB is going to be joining us a little bit. We don't have a lot to get to, but there's a few things I want to get to because I know that's true. I want to talk about the return of cancel culture. That's in the culture segment. And then in technology, we're going to talk about AI getting political. Yet
Also
another
in the-
one, I called it, not a hard one to call. I want to get into a little bit of a state of the death of the open web. I know you have some thoughts on that. And then we're going to talk about private capital and the finance. Maybe we have to add finances as another totem of this. A couple of quick opening tidbits, if you will. I did a podcast earlier with Helena Botemiller Avich. I know I'm mispronouncing one of those. I always mispronounce names, which is terrible for a podcaster. She runs this newsletter, Food Fix. She covered food and agricultural policy issues at Politico, including Politico Pro, for about a decade. And then she split off on her own. She's got a great business. She charges $500 a year for access to it. Keeps it super simple, no advertising, no dinner hustle, no mixers even. She doesn't even do mixers. And she is a confirmed Alexista. She really is into Alex. And
Do you think, is that because of what he says or what he looks like?
I think it's for what he represents.
What he represents.
And she wants to know what he really, what quote unquote, what he really thinks about Joe Gebbia, because she senses there was something underneath there. And she wants to know Alex's view on how Maha is using design. So we're going to have to get that from Alex. Some feedback from Alec Leach. Alec is former fashion editor at High Snobiety. He's a total Berlin guy. I hope Alec doesn't mind me saying that. He wrote a book, The World is on Fire, but we're still buying shoes. Seems a little disillusioned with the sort of hype.
Was this the guy that accused me of being a commie?
He said that you and AB are one Jacobin article away from basically picking up a shovel in Mamdanistan.
What does that mean?
Joining the revolution.
What does that even mean, Brian?
He wants us to do a mixer in Berlin. So we're gonna get is it Berghain? The Berghain.
We should do that. I'll wear my chaps.
Yeah. We're gonna reserve the sex dungeon at the Berghain. It'll be great.
So what is he saying, Brian? Like, I'm no commie. Everybody knows this. I mean, I've been accused on this podcast of being like borderline MAGA.
Yeah, no, I think what he sees is the more you sort of talk, the more you sort of come face to face with all the contradictions and the impossibility of, rabid capitalism and what it's leading to. Because it's like you come, and we'll get into this, the AI section, because you start to.
We're all one AI doomer article away from being a little freaked out right now, Brian.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if in the morning you feel like you can shake off the hangover, like, this stuff's coming fast and furious. Nobody seems to really understand what's going to happen. We're on the precipice of some kind of massive white-collar disruption, right? We're concentrating power in a few hands. The government doesn't seem to give a fuck. And everybody hates data centers. And, we're just rushing towards this new world. We need to consider the consequences a little bit, don't you think?
I do. And what I was struck by, it was probably the middle of the night there. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch it, is Trump gave a nearly 2-hour State of the Union address last night. And what I did was I just did a Control F for AI. And there was the only mention of AI was around the data centers and basically a very wonky political policy aspect of data centers.
He said they're going to get their own power was his thing.
But that's not a real national conversation about the implications of this. And I'm just so struck, over 2 hours of talking. And this is a moment where...
What surprised you?
Well, I do. Maybe it's less surprising, but it's more depressing that we don't have a political class that is clearly grappling with this. To me, it's either this is the Y2K times a million, or we are sleepwalking into something really bad. And this is starting to show up, and I believe it's seeping into our politics.
He's outsourced it to David Sachs. David Sachs is not only conflicted, but he's the greatest rationalizer of all time. He's like Mensa level rationalizer of anything in his interest.
Okay, so here are some statistics for you. According to Gallup, 38% of employees say their workplace is integrated AI. It's about flat. Pew, 61% want more control over how AI is used in their lives. 58% say the government should do more to regulate AI. Data centers have become a real flashpoint. When you get into the polling data, let me just finish. There's nearly twice as much opposition to data centers when they're used for AI versus used for generic internet infrastructure. That, to me, the data centers are a canary in the coal mine. And politicians, they have their own set of incentives, and they see the data center ratings and they're going hard after them. It's not the conversation that we should be having, but I think I'm
less concerned about the data centers and more concerned about white collar implosion and all the second order impacts of that, which are massive. And then, which are going to obviously, for all those people that will challenge me on this, is going to take 5 times as long as anybody is sort of guessing, particularly the most recent, what was the name of the research piece that rocked the market? Citrini.
Third tier research outfit, the guy who wrote it has 2,000 X followers, writes a Substack, basically. It's science fiction. It's set in 2030, and it's looking backwards about what happened and plays forward this doomer scenario. It was nice narrative, and narratives are so important because we have no idea which direction this stuff is going, that it tanked a lot of stocks the next day. This is kind of shocking. This is not Goldman Sachs or the Fed. The Fed actually replied, a Fed governor replied to a Substack post that rocked the markets.
I mean, Ben Thompson from Stratechery made the point that we've been talking about the internet wiping out real estate agents for 20 years, and it still hasn't happened.
Travel agents are still around, dude.
I use one. But what concerned me more, because I have kids, is that the MIT study that said that AI is making us dumber.
Well, obviously it's making us dumb.
Well, I mean, social media already made us dumb. You sent around a stat on that. It's not good. We're getting dumber.
Yeah, and Mark Zuckerberg...
You know what that study said? 14% decline in whatever first principle reasoning. And the researchers found a pronounced erosion of critical skepticism, which means we're all becoming NPCs, and that AI allowed professionals to produce work significantly faster, but the quality was plateaued at a median level. So everything is getting shittier. But they found that there's a difference between co-piloters and autopiloters. And this is what I've been preaching to my kids. You need to be like a centaur. You need to be a co-piloter. You need to use this wonderful tech to be mighty, not to offload work.
Okay, sure. And you know what? Cliff Notes were always supposed to be a guide to supplement your reading of the material, not a replacement of actually doing the work to read the material. Right. My experience at St. Genevieve's was that most of the kids that used Cliff Notes were not augmenting their reading of the original text. They were replacing.
What did you do? Did you augment or did you replace?
Absolutely not. I did the reading, although I did it on the bus on the way to school. That's what prepared me for a career in journalism, actually, because that is a core skill.
Okay, so you agree with this study that it's going to make us dumber?
No, I don't think necessarily, but I think that there is probably a fork, just like there were between those kids that, used it as a replacement for doing the work, and those that did the work and used it to augment themselves and have an even greater understanding. Look at YouTube. You can go on YouTube and you can watch what's the Akib Bandar or whatever, the one that AB's all into, the AI monkey. You can watch that stuff, or you can watch an MIT course about AI. Which path, young man or young lady?
Monkey.
Both?
I called my daughter and I told her, I'll send you a Mac Mini. You need to get OpenClaw going and you need to get augmented immediately.
Oh, God.
Is that bad?
Did you see that?
Instinct?
The Meta, the woman who runs their safety, she ended up allowing OpenClaw to take over her email account and started deleting all of her emails.
Maybe she should find a new line of work.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty bad. Dario Omadai, who I've also identified. I am onto a lot of things early, but I think they're pretty obvious.
You like his sort of autistic stylings, right? You like the blinking and the stuttering and stuff.
I like how he presents. He presents as a mad scientist, as a wizard, okay? And wizards should be at the top of our societal pyramid. I was thinking this. Engineers should not be the top. Scientists, aka wizards, should be at the top. And he's a wizard, okay? He's not Sam Altman, not looped guy. He's a true card-carrying wizard. And I think that they have a really good lane that they've established, and he is really good with the safety angle. Because if you look at the polling, this is where people have a lot of concerns. And he's been sounding the alarm. He has a business model where he's selling to big enterprises, and they don't want revolution. They have
Except the Defense Department doesn't want his wizardry.
So he got hauled by Pete Hegseth into the Department of War.
God, you'd love to be a fly on the wall for that one.
Yeah, this is a meeting of the minds. This guy's like, oh my God, I was
talking about watching monkeys.
I got this guy. I don't know, maybe Pete Hegseth challenged him some pull-ups. But they basically said that they'll rip out Warclawed, which is a hilarious name, if they don't take off the safety controls that kind of reasonably, I think, mean that they cannot use it for mass surveillance of civilians or to automate killing, and this is good marketing. This is better than any Super Bowl ad, right? Because this is their lane. I assume, and I hope he tells them to go stuff it.
No, he capitulated already. What are you talking about? It's a $200 million contract. Yes. You can't have an AI company telling the Department of War what they should and shouldn't do because your model is, knows better. You can't. That's not how the military hierarchy works, Brian.
Just give over that to like someone else. I don't know.
Claude took down Maduro, man. It works.
Well, either way, Sam Altman, his I guess his rival now, they refuse to hold hands. I mean, they are rivals. He left OpenAI and started Anthropic.
What do you think Sam was thinking with the food analogy?
So this is what I'm getting at. They refused to hold hands at this Indian government event, which is fair. They always do these weird things when they bring the world leaders to those like G8 or whatever, where they have to put on the like silly like Hawaiian shirts and stuff. I don't think they do that with Trump. I think he'd be like, I'm absolutely not putting on that costume, which I give the guy grief. I agree with him on that. Don't put on the costume. And Sam Altman came out and he compared the energy use of human babies to the energy use of training AI models. This struck me as, with all the things going on, this was kind of like an important moment. I don't know if anything becomes an important moment, but it really spoke to the massive divide that we've talked about in this, with these small group of people who are trying to reshape, our society and our economy, and the fact that they don't seem to share the mainstream values of society at the end of the day. We always have a small elite who are oftentimes a little bit disconnected from the rest of us, if you will. But when it comes to these tech guys, they really struggle to present as normal humans, to be honest with you. This was transhumanism. This was taking off the mask and basically saying, I'm a transhumanist, which is that we will have to merge with machines or we will be replaced by machines. And that is just a losing issue with normal people.
He was angry. He was angry that Wired said he was part of the gay cabal.
And maybe. The gay cabal story I thought was actually fairly interesting. Wired had this piece. Wired has become really an interesting brand.
She's a great editor. I like
Katie
it a
Drummond
lot.
has brought a real energy there. And I know there's a lot of, our very aggrieved tech overlords who are like, I remember the Wired of my youth and all this stuff. I think it's a great lane that they're in. We need more tech skepticism as they take over society, and from smart places. It should come from Condé Nast. Why not? So Wired did a story about the gay cabal of Silicon Valley. It was kind of funny. I don't know if you read it, but to me, it was amusing because it was about it spoke to like the conspiracy theory of the moment, and cabals are, very conspiracy heavy. And, it pointed out that a lot of the leaders in Silicon Valley hang out together, and, some of them are gay. Some of them just, like Esteem. You love Esteem, and Gary Tan likes, to have some of his Y Combinator cohorts over and hang out in the steam room a little bit. I find nothing wrong with that. I thought it was a really well done article. It was kind of funny send up, honestly, to the fact that, guess what? Cabals run the world. They do.
Always, man. You just don't know it until you know it.
And the funniest part, to me, is like everyone always talked about the old boys club and like the golf course and all this stuff like this. This is not unique to white cisgendered males, whatever. Anyone in power positions establishes cabals. Cabals are they've been with us for the longest time. I don't know why anyone is surprised by these things. I thought it was funny in some ways, and I thought it was actually
I'm ashamed to admit it.
subversive.
I don't have a Wired subscription currently. Maybe I should get one. But
You could put it in an archive.is.
Oh, is that how you got to it? Yeah, I tried to
Just
end
saying.
run. I tried to end run with AI, but I just got a kind of like a basic summary.
It
of
was
the
funny.
article.
It came to the conclusion that is there a quote unquote cabal pulling the strings? Of course not, right? Is there like a group of powerful men who also happen to be gay who hang out together? Yeah, okay. Yeah, big deal. Like, I don't know, maybe you should like go into like fashion sometime and like see what happens. Cabals are everywhere. Going back to the AI and politics thing, Ro Khanna, who is an interesting congressman from California, he represents Silicon Valley, but he clashes with them quite a bit, actually. You know what I mean? He's in favor of this billionaire tax, and that's, he's being targeted by the tech elites in California. To me, it's like, this is all negotiation. Mark Zuckerberg is not I'm not going to see Mark Zuckerberg like in Miami for too long. He's not. Give me a break.
He likes jet skiing there, I think.
Okay. But that, you can only do so much jet skiing. You can only do so much. He's going to be back in Silicon Valley. This is all like just a negotiation, and they'll get it. But he came out with, I don't know, was it like a manifesto? He came out with some principles about like how we should approach AI. And it struck me as, at least on first glance,
sensible.
as kind of sensible.
Yeah.
And the kind of conversation I feel like we should be having. Now, Ron DeSantis is also going against, from the right side, he's going against AI. He's attacking the data centers. He's completely in opposition to the Trump administration by saying the states have the right to regulate this stuff, which, by the way, the Republican Party used to believe in federalism and states' rights. I mean, but whatever. We're in a weird period now. It's happening, basically. And I think
that reminds me of how the prediction market guys slipped through the little regulatory needle, and their stuff is considered federally regulated because it's not in the category of betting, which is regulated by the states. That's why it took sports betting so long to roll out. And they're under the same people that regulate like derivatives and stuff. So
the CFTC.
Yeah. And so now what a great outcome for Polymarket and Kalshi.
Yeah, I mean, everything. AB is here. He can tell us.
Oh my God, AB, you look so great. How you doing, man?
Good. Doing good.
Yeah, you got rid of the Bannon haircut.
I cut it down.
Are you watching? I didn't choose this, but I make compromises. I'm watching this JFK Jr. series. Are you watching this with Carolyn Bessette? It's like a love story of the two of them. That guy had great hair.
Oh yeah. No,
I mean, no
genes.
offense, AB, but like he had just a helmet of hair.
God, what I wouldn't give.
Yeah. I miss George magazine. I liked George. I liked what he was trying to do with George. It was, it was kind of fun of the time. That was the last hurrah for
I just went to a
magazines.
party in Manhattan somewhere, and on one wall was every cover of George magazine, framed.
They used to have like a group quiz game that was really addictive. I really liked it. And this was like early on with the internet. So RIP George magazine. AB, we're talking about
Cancel culture was your thought.
We're wrapping up. Yeah, we're wrapping up here in AR. We're going to talk about cancel culture because I think cancel culture is back. I think it's learned its lessons from the arguable. I don't think it's arguable. There were some excesses with cancel culture. Epstein has been the one to like bring it back. I mean, a lot of people are falling, and you can't really. It's really hard to say, oh, well, this is like excessive and whatnot, because anyone who was palling around with Epstein, particularly after the 2008 conviction, it should probably pay some kind of social consequences. I'm not saying that they have to,
People
be set off on
generally
a
draw
nice
the
flow.
line around pedophilia. They go nuts with
Well,
that.
so there's the well actually crowd that it's not actually a pedophilia. A really difficult place
That's
to
interesting.
be.
There is the well action. I've found that crowd.
Yeah. No, it's a lane, because that's what actually Lachlan Cartwright from Breaker had a great thing about the scandal PR guy who was like running interference for Epstein. And that was like the first part of their book. It's not pedophilia. Right. It's just 17-year-olds, just barely legal stuff.
Yeah. And then he said, by the way, it's my job to protect people that are, got on the wrong side of things.
Exactly. So I actually tried, there's this AI generated Epstein podcast, the Epstein Files. Have you guys seen this? It like rocketed up the charts. And as a podcaster, I got a little concerned, so I needed to check it out. It sucks. I don't think this stuff is going to, because the Notebook LM sort of banter is just like reading ChatGPT to me. It just grates on me. Okay. I mean, it's great that they can like gin up a podcast like this and rocket up the charts of Apple Podcasts, but as a product.
But doesn't that just mean that there's all kinds of formats and different places for different formats where someone could turn a particular moment into a podcast super quickly, and clearly people listen to it. It's not going to have the lasting, kind of feel of a wonderful, character-driven podcast, but people liked it. It's fine. Just like the monkey shit that Blake likes.
What is this stuff, AB? You love that stuff. Bandar Apnadu.
I mean, the monkey stuff isn't the next National Lampoon, but it's good for a while. It's funny.
AB thought he was coming to talk about private credit, but
no, that's okay. I think that where the Notebook LM, like where we found it useful, is like dense equity research, like getting up to speed on a company, and that's where the audio feature. It's helpful.
You would turn your equity research into a podcast?
Yeah. So you're taking someone to go meet with a company, and you can pull a bunch of equity research. Like you can basically condense down 20 different PDFs into 30 minutes. Right. So maybe they can't read it because they're in the car and they're going to get car sick or whatever. But that's where
you just listen to it while you're looking after your kid.
Exactly. Not paying attention. Yeah. No, but it helps with the clients. Like I think it's like the simplest way to convey. Like a lot of times you send stuff to people and they don't ever read it. So
that is true. So I just don't like it personally. I think, look, Silicon Valley these days likes to talk about taste. I don't know if you've noticed this. There's this meme that as they've commoditized everything, starting with themselves and developers, they're like the last moat is taste. And I can't think of a group of people less well-positioned.
Well, there is the taste cabal in Silicon Valley, and they all think they're sort of descendants of Steve Jobs. It's guys like Dave Moran that believe that the reason a product succeeds is because it embraces and exhibits taste.
So Dave Moran is like, he's taking over this OpenClaw, now that the OpenClaw guy got like acqui-hired by OpenAI. And, there's something afoot there with these like OpenClaw meetups and whatnot. And it's very Web 2. I feel like there's a lot of Web 2
I think it's more
people.
crypto than Web 2.
Really? Because I think there's a lot of Web 2 people.
No, it's like people getting together to
out.
celebrate those monkey gifts.
No, it's about like, it's a hobbyist movement to be able to like host the
it's like a ham radio group.
Kind of, yeah. But like Web 2 always had that. Like meetups, Scott Heffernan might be back. Like people want meetups. They want mixers. Just telling you what the people on the street tell me. One thing on the sort of
Do you
Epstein,
think that, are you more a mixer guy now than a web? What was their last thing? What became before mixers for you?
Well, there's salons.
No,
dinners. There's breakfast.
But your video podcast things that you do, your
webinars.
Has Mixer replaced webinars for you?
Yes, mixers are bigger.
Are they more lucrative?
TBD on that, because you don't have the hard costs in webinars. I mean, webinars are great It's like awards. Awards are a great business. Once you have the award submission system, you just charge people for entries, you charge people for trophies, you charge people to go to the gala, you charge people to get an extra trophy for their client, you charge people to put the little badge on their email that they won the award. It's just like charges like up and down. It's great.
Well, Brian, I have a question on the cancel culture thing before we just give that a sort of superficial treatment. Is it easier to come back from that now because you can sort of hate max your way out of it?
I mean, I think so, for sure. But I do think that there's still some like callbacks to like the old cancel culture. The U.S. hockey team, I don't know how much of this was mainstream. It's hard for me to
What
even
a bunch of bullshit that was. They were so outplayed by the Canadians. Did you watch that game? What
I didn't
a tragedy.
watch it. I mean,
always get the best goalie money.
I don't have dual loyalties. And so like
everybody in America was cheering for Canada except for like Trump and
I was cheering for America. I thought it was a great moment for that guy, used with the broken tooth, the bloodiness, the wrapped in the American flag. Young men have had a difficult, go of it. It was nice to see some like gnarly Gen Z men for the most part, do something amazing. And look, that takes a lot of dedication and hard work. Hockey is like no joke. I thought it was very exciting. They got a call from Trump afterwards. Trump made like one of his boorish jokes about like having to invite the women's team to the White House. And these guys are in the locker room and they laughed along with it. I'm not going to kill them for that. I thought the whole thing was frankly a little silly. Reminded me.
The president gives you a phone call in the middle of the greatest euphoric moment of your professional life and makes a dumb joke and you laugh at it. I mean, come on. Of course you laugh at it.
You're crushing like Michelob Ultras in the locker room. And
right.
Yeah, I'm not ready to kill him. I don't think it's going to stick because we've moved past that part. I think we've got enough people to cancel for Epstein Island, and it's not actually pedophilia, it's ephebophilia. So good for the U.S. hockey team. I'm proud to be an American. I'll just say that personally, although not always.
I think the problem with the Epstein thing is, I don't think we'll ever know what actually happened, right? And so all these people named in the emails just have like a sting on them.
Yeah.
I think what's different here is like
but here's the thing, like they should have the stain if they cavorted with Epstein post 2008. You make the bed you lie in, etc. So tough, too bad, so sad.
No, I'm not saying they shouldn't have it. I think like the last cycle, there were a couple executives in the last cancel culture cycle, but it was mainly more like Harvey Weinstein, celebrities, people that already had some of this access and they were just like over leveraging it. And I think this is different where you have a bunch of business people because there's a lot. Like, yes, you see some of the emails get highlighted on Twitter, but there's so many emails and there's so many names that I think a lot of people have been canceled, and it's like not news, but they're just getting fired or leaving their jobs or not getting invited to conferences, having to leave boards. Like, I think it's pretty wide.
I mean, it's hard to like, feel too broken up for, some people make bad decisions and like there's consequences to that. So I think, if there is like a reform to cancel culture, it's that it really truly becomes accountability for poor decisions that people should have and had an opportunity to know.
Just don't email. I mean, I think that lesson here, like, I think this pushes people to Signal and Telegram, like stop emailing, right?
Well, Trump was, he at least had enough self-awareness to know that email was not for him.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, this one's a little different, right? Because now we get this little peek into a world of systematic corruption of elites and, the just like gross entitlement of a group of people that are, beyond any of the kind of, the gravity that we live by. And then you tie the pedophilia into that. And you need to leave the board.
People have to go out and say, there's this guy, Michael Tracy, who, look, it's really difficult out there if you're a journalist. And so you got to find a lane. And he's found a lane in actually, it's not pedophilia. And this is the McMartin preschool hysteria all over again. Do you remember that back in the 90s when there was this, maybe it was the 80s, like all these supposed satanic cults with preschools, and like the McMartin preschool was like ground zero of this. And like a lot of people had their lives ruined. when it was all fabricated, a lot of like counselors put these ideas into children's heads, and they ruined a lot of lives because of it. I don't think it's the exact one-to-one comparison there, but this is Michael Tracy's lane. He takes the opposite side of like all of these things. So like when Russia invaded Ukraine, everyone was like, Slava Ukraini. He's like, well, actually, Russia has a point. He was that with impeachment and so on and so forth. So you got to differentiate. Troy,
I like those guys. Well, here's
death of the open web.
It's not that. Listen, media is going to be fine. Media is always fine, right? And, even as the world fragments into creators and influencers and stuff, people still love media brands. People can't get famous proclaiming their own greatness. You need someone else to talk about you. Media brands are a efficient mechanism for trust. Reporting is viable today as it was, 50 years ago. You still need to do the work and to find the angle, find the story and all of that. But it just occurred to me the other day, because I would like to not spend, I too can get massively sucked into like the Instagram vortex. And what I say to myself often is, well, actually there's a lot of good stuff here. And the algorithm's done a pretty good job for me of surfacing like a lot of business and news content from, a wide range from Bloomberg to individual influencers that I actually like and I find use. But when I reflected on it, I'm like, the web is a joke now. It really is. And it's really sad. And I don't know if it was just sort of terminally fucked from the beginning because of the way it was conceived of, where it was a publishing system independent of a monetization system, where we ran advertising simultaneously with content that was never really worked, where we basically auctioned off attention instead of having a more curated approach to advertising, but basically, and then the European bureaucrats came in and totally wrecked the web. And if you spend any time in Europe, it's like GDPR at this point is so fucking ridiculous. It does nothing for anyone.
Troy, this is your cause of a lifetime.
No, dude, they're taking more information about me at the massage place than than they're ever, it's just like ridiculous that they're, this tracking consent thing. And it really, the thing that irks me the most, Brian, and I will stop talking about it if it irritates you, but is that it penalizes, it punishes publishers. And guess what? The platforms don't get punished because you only consent once for the entire platform, right? So it really does penalize publishers and the open web. But anyway, programmatic.
It's Ben Barocas, doesn't it?
Oh, there's a little minor boutique industry of like consent managers. That's the worst job in the world. Are you kidding me? Selling into something you have to do for the European Commission? It's terrible. It's tragic. Anyway, the web, GDPR and programmatic made the web really bad. And it's exemplified by, sorry, Penske, your pages are garbage. It's ridiculous at this point. You highlighted it last week. Floating
BI is becoming variety-like. It's every third paragraph on BI.
And then paywalls kind of are a flawed mechanism because there's no sampling, right? You find something interesting, you can't taste it, you run up against the wall, you bail. It's just another reason why the web is so broken. And then what are we left with, right? Well, we're left with Apple News. Apple News is stupid because it's not part of the open web. It's this really bad interface on information. At least it's clean, though. At least it's slightly more organized and civilized. And we have email. Why did we pick up email as a media format? Because it's finite and because it isn't littered with trash programmatic ads, right? So email did really well. I don't know if it was designed for media. We could do better, I think.
By the way, there are some trash programmatic ads for email. There's some,
but they're fewer because people just won't open the email, right? Right. And of course, where do we go now? Well, all the providers, they're the new free for someone like a Bloomberg or someone like the Atlantic or someone like the New York Times. The new free is social, right? That's where you get good little tidbits from them. They don't care about the web, free web. They care
Well,
about
it's sampling. I mean, come on. They're using it as a marketing channel.
right. It works great for social media. It really does. It's a good format. It's short. It's video. It's visual, and it's delivered in a way that isn't cluttered with a bunch of garbage advertising. So social won, right? And I guess email kind of won, but it's radically imperfect. And then, of course, at the same time, social killed editors. And it, created, I think, kind of a massive confirmation bias problem. Although we can sit here and slam that, but algorithms do a pretty good job. If you're an interested person, you'll get lots of good stuff. But basically, the open web is pretty much dead at this point. And what we have left is, if you want free content and you're a consumer, is Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And as a result, just so we know what we get massive fragmentation. And we get crazy, these kind of max raging, content that is designed to kind of trap you in some kind of little rage spiral. And you get these weird little attention kind of tsunamis that magically form with the narrative of the week, which is what happened this week when everybody freaked out about the AI story on X. So,
there seems like there's like a long form story of the week that is.
Yeah, but unfortunately now that narrative is connected to financial markets, and then we get this kind of crazy reaction from Wall Street. But anyway, that's my probably not very. I don't know what the answer is, but that's kind of where I think the answer is that people just go more analog. You just go back to what worked before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, AB, you're into like niche magazines, right? I mean, you're a known.
He doesn't read them. He just puts them on the bookshelf.
Bibliophile. Or that's books.
It's like a nice paperweight.
Magaphile?
I think the problem with when media can't exist or doesn't exist that much on the open web, it's just completely different. It's not as profitable. It's smaller. The organizations that will survive are more nimble, less like the open web provided just free customers effectively that you could monetize with all sorts of advertising and subscriptions. When you're having to go to social or these other platforms, you're sharing more of the revenue, you're having to pay to get to the people. It just becomes a tougher business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys going to the Caper party on Monday?
It was postponed, I think.
It's this Monday. I'm not going to be back for it, unfortunately. They're having it at Bar Oliver. I'm glad that there's media launch parties. I love that. I love that. Bar Oliver is a great place, though. What's ironic about that is the food is terrible at Bar Oliver. So I don't know if that's a good sign for the food publication. But it's a cool place, but the food is not very good. Sorry. I think it's objectively not good. Let's talk about private capital. I have no idea what we're talking about. But apparently in 2020, private capital became much more. You're going to have to walk me through this. Private capital boomed and became the preferred vehicle for private equity because there's looser restrictions that allowed for the greater use of leverage. Tell me when I'm wrong here. And that's about all I know.
Okay, so when what
I'm a words guy.
Get basic with him and just explain that when private equity does a deal, they need capital, right? They have capital, but they leverage the deal. So they have to go get money.
And every business uses debt, right? Because it's a tax shield. So most businesses, even if they're super profitable, have some form of debt. One of the higher users is private equity because every time they buy a business, they sort of layer in their equity check with debt. And the debt is usually cheaper. The cost of capital is cheaper, so it boosts the returns on the equity. Because of the different regulations around the banks have higher lending standards. So they have different covenants where they'll be testing things for the company's financials, which just makes it a harder process. To go to a bank and get financing from them can take months. This new channel popped up, and it's more significant in the last 5 years, but it's been around for a while, where it's private credit lenders. So they're not traditional banks. They have pools of capital where they underwrite deals and lend to companies. What's unique about them is the rates are not that much more than the traditional bank. So maybe it's 1 or 2 percentage points more. And then they're also covenant light. So they're not going to be checking as many things about the company on a historical basis. So it allows private equity to move quicker around acquisitions. Typically the private credit lenders will base a lot of their underwriting on the private equity firm investing the check. So it kind of goes back to when Silicon Valley Bank used to do all this venture lending, and they would, Kleiner Perkins would put in $20 million to a company, and Silicon Valley Bank would give them a $5 million credit facility. Silicon Valley Bank they would do a little bit of diligence, but they were primarily doing that loan because of Kleiner Perkins putting the money in. Private credit did a bit more diligence, but not as much. And the other thing that kind of makes this current cycle a little bit scary, which started last week with the Blue Owl postponing or locking up redemptions.
Wait, what's Blue Owl? What is Blue Owl? I literally never
Blue
heard of
Owl is
Blue
just
Owl.
one of these massive pools of capital. So as all this extra money got pumped into the system and needed to get invested and try to get higher yields, private credit just sucked up a lot of this money. And so, because they could get, depending on what they were lending into, 10 to 15% rates of return. But the one unique thing about private credit is they typically allow for higher leverage. So, and this is sort of what got picked up on X and Twitter, is that for some of these software acquisitions, the EBITDA multiples were 10, 15 times. And normally a bank, they're going to cap out at like 5 turns, a traditional bank, but some of these private credit lenders were willing to go higher. And so I think what you're starting to see is some weakness, and it may not be from the underlying company portfolios, but more so on the side of investors believing that they're going to get all their money back. There's no way for private credit, there's no upside, right? So you're not like a private equity firm where if the company sells for 5x of what you paid, you're going to get a higher return.
It's
Private
fixed
credit
income.
just gets its money
I know
back.
at least fixed income, right?
Yeah.
So, but okay, this sounds somewhat interesting. Is this like a systemic risk? I only care, I never wanted to know about mortgage-backed securities. I wished I never knew. But when it takes down like a system and it causes economic chaos, then I gotta learn a little bit.
It's
Is
a
this
massive,
I don't care if Apollo loses money. I really don't.
You're in good form today, Brian. I really like what you're doing today. You're awesome.
When Apollo, everything's hyper connected. So I think it's a risk. And one of the things that I've seen with a couple of these private credit deals when they've gone bad is the private equity firm that owns it just gives effectively the keys back to the private credit firm, and then the private credit firm operates it so they don't have to mark down their debt. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of weakness here. There's different reporting requirements, so it may take longer to see sort of flush through the system. Some of these private credit companies show up as BDCs. They're publicly traded, so you can see what's happening on a quarterly basis. But yeah, there's a lot of risk here because private credit has become a much bigger lender to companies of all sizes because it's just easier, it's quicker. So if that starts to turn off, the banks I don't think are going to pick up the slack.
Okay, so then what happens? We just have
not having liquidity is not a good thing, right? It's, I don't know, the market.
Is the government going to bail out this? That's terrible.
I don't think this is a bail. We're not to a bailout point. I just think it's a very fragile component of the banking system that started to show itself last week with them locking down the redemptions and selling part of the portfolio of the loans. One of the people they sold it to was themselves, which is never a good sign.
Wait, they sold it to themselves?
They sold it to an insurance partnership that they are partial controller of. Yeah.
This is why socialism is going to win.
Yeah. I think where it could have a significant impact is private equity's already been slow. They've had a hard time selling stuff. And part of that's been interest rates have been high and other factors. But if the private credit market starts to get more stringent, it's going to get harder to get deals done, lower valuation. So it's a drag on the economic M&A system.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's going to hurt you.
Hurts everybody. Yeah.
Well, not me. Let's get real.
It hurts everybody.
How does it hurt me?
Well, it's just economic activity. Hey, I didn't get a chance to ask you, what was your read on this AI Doomer research
Citrin.
report?
Had you ever heard of these people before?
Citrini, isn't it Citrini?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the guys who have always written the short seller stuff.
So wait, did they make money off this? Did they have shorts on software stocks and then put out this fiction? It's probably the most valuable piece of science fiction that's been created in some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what they had done in the past. They would do a bunch of research on a company and then go short and then publish the paper.
Can you do some
literally, it's just
research
a
on that
narrative.
and
Wait,
report back?
Wait, can I just step in here for a second? Maybe it's just a narrative. It's a story.
Yeah.
They could have made a comic book.
Sure.
This is amazing.
But I think what people underappreciate is there doesn't need to be that much change to really fuck up the economy. Like I appreciate that's like fiction and that's like crazy, but only a couple of percentage points needs to change in employment and stuff to have really wreak havoc on the system.
Well, what I think is interesting is that when we talk about narrative driving markets, it seems like things are so interconnected and so complicated, and we have no idea where things are going, that is one of the reasons that this kind of putting it in a story, because it was basically it wasn't dry research, it was a story. It was good. And that is the way that we are communicating. Just like you were talking about research reports going into Notebook LM and people then like actually consuming the content. It's another instance of the triumph of narrative.
Nice one.
Yeah, I think,
AB, are you buying the software dip?
No.
Where's the money-making opportunity, AB? That's enough of the sort of finance 101 talk. How are we going to make some money?
Making? I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be a really interesting, so everyone has seen Claude's come out with this Claude in Excel, Claude in PowerPoint, Claude in your Chrome.
Is this in Claude Cowork or is this just Claude?
Claude has plugins. I mean, it's very confusing how it's all braided, but because right now, if you tell Claude, hey, edit this Google slide, because the way that they interface with Google documents is not in structured data, they're taking screenshots. So hopefully with MCPs like this, the right connectors, it can turn into more structured data. But there's just in banking, there's still months, years of work that needs to get done to make these things actually viable. It's nowhere near, it doesn't matter how good your Claude Cowork thing is set up or you have CloudBot or whatever. It's the fidelity is not there. And so I appreciate that.
Well, are you bullish on your future as a banker? Are you going to become a chef?
I don't think AI can replace relationships.
Yeah. So
that's you're in trouble when you're on that. That's a bearish sign.
Why?
Because that's literally what ad agencies always told me. Ad agencies always said when I was writing about the internet and how I was going to doom ad agencies, they kept saying, "Oh, nothing can replace relationships."
Well,
have you looked at
an M&A deal is not M&A deal is not like a programmatic ad buy, right? It's not ROAS based. So, and I think Google replaced TV advertising because it's just the amount of weight it can suck up in total ad dollar. But I think that there's in certain professional services, there's still a need to connect people, to come up with ideas, to be creative. A lot of the basic work is going to get automated away.
Yeah. I think a lot of time when people see the statistics like Dario Omadai or whatever, it's 50% of they miss the entry level. 50% of entry level work in this is going away. There is definitely going to be, you hire people who are not really that productive for you. It's a bet on the future that they're going to be productive for you, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And that is the training that really takes place. It doesn't take place in a freaking classroom. It takes place at the company, right? So I wonder how much, I don't know if you saw, did you see, Troy, that Profound, this company, they just raised a $96 million Series C round. And it's basically an AI marketing platform. This is they do it all, and they're really focused on GEO, which I think is a lot of smoke and mirrors right now. SEO is always the home of a ton of smoke and mirrors. And
remind us what GEO is.
That is whatever generative engine optimization. AEO, GEO is sometimes called, but this is trying to influence brands showing up in ChatGPT, in Gemini, in Claude.
Well, what I've been seeing, I just looked at a company that is basically adding kind of bots all the way through the creative and media planning process for performance marketing, where there's multiple sort of agentic touch points where they work on the creative, they deploy test campaigns to sort of micro segments. They then suck in the call center data from any of those leads. There's a CRM review agent that looks at the quality of the interaction from that lead. It then takes that data and puts more money against the best performing segments. It optimizes that and it turns it all out into one great big, beautiful, high performance layer cake. I think when you're optimizing at that level, I actually think that everybody gets the machine. It's not like one company, gets the machine and then the market is just efficient for them. Basically, everybody gets the machine and you got to find the new ARB. But that's what's going to happen, right? All of this stuff is getting automated.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you ARB and have the right data? I think having data that's not platform dependent is really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think everyone keeps seeing how it's going to replace our current work. So let me just give you a random example. Say you're going to talk to a big company. You'll have the junior team spend a week building a model saying, hey, you could do this. You could buy this company. It's accretive to your stock. Here's like the 3 scenarios. And like those 20 pages could take someone 3 to 5 days. And it's like super annoying. And like you spend a bunch of time iterating on it and things like that. I think the future is more dynamic presentations where even there's like a leave behind where it's like here. So it's like moving beyond just this static presentation. And this is where like people still need to be there, but it's like, here's the proposed M&A idea we had. Here's like the different levers in terms of value, how much debt you put on, and here's how accretive it is to your stock price. So I think what you're going to see from professional service providers is just better tools. When they go to their clients and talk about different ideas, it's not going to be just this static, oh, here's what we're thinking. You get feedback, you send them back another PDF, but you actually go like much deeper because with AI and technology, an analyst at a bank could effectively develop a dynamic page that the client can access to continue to iterate on the idea. So I think you're going to just see more high fidelity content that makes sense for people.
Right. I mostly was joking about you being replaced with the relationships thing.
Yeah.
But you're going to be able to build a firm. You're building a firm right now, right? You should be able to build this differently than if you were building it 10 years ago. And the reality is you're going to need like fewer people, right? You're going to be able to automate. You're going to have agents going out and like doing all kinds of things on your behalf, right?
The way to think about technology in banking, like when I first started, we were using a version of Excel that was like 6 years old. And so technology, and it all stems from compliance, you're a very slow mover because the last thing you want is like data to leak. Even though if someone just went to the Goldman Sachs and opened up one of the trash cans, they're going to get all the data anyway because you throw so much of this stuff out. But like in professional services, it just moves so much slower, especially finance, because it's more regulated. So yeah, I think there's a big opportunity.
What about like Excel? Like, I don't know how much of an Excel jockey you are, but like, are you mad about those skills being commoditized and you're just like natural language? Not because like, there was a lot of like analysts who are like really good at Excel. Like there's like Excel championships, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't think that actually added any value. It was just like to run a scenario to see how much taxes and interest you're going to pay and how much leverage you can put. So
it's funny with all these little technology skills. I remember, do you remember T9? You were probably too young.
Yeah.
Troy, do you remember T9? Like that weird like texting like language that you had to use in order to do like on a what is the phone? Numeric phone keyboard? Like in order to get like a letter, you had to they had championships. It was always in like Korea or something. Like
it makes you think, when you talk about AI dispersion, it's naturally going to take, much longer than any of the sort of doomer prognosticators would suggest. But if you look at, the history of technology, we've been writing code for a long time. And like the example that AB used, we've been getting much more productive in creating systems from an era of punch cards and COBOL and all that stuff to where we are today. The next shift is just, another layer of productivity in terms of, how we create systems. But the systems we're going to create are going to be infinitely more complex, and it's going to take more sort of managers to make sure that the complexity doesn't go haywire, which is just, I say this because when we transition society with technology and new things emerge to manage a more complex society, and at the same time, what happens is we go back to other ways of interacting as humans that are more analog, that also require different types of talent and employment. Like we eat at restaurants a lot, or, we spend our time in new ways experientially. All of this opens up new opportunities. So I think that we need to be cognizant of this when we, when we talk about the end of times.
All right, I want to get to good product, but I have an idea. I think all of us should individually, maybe we give ourselves a couple of weeks, but we should come back. Maybe it's just a week. We should all create our own agent, and we should, have a comparison of what we've built.
We should have an agent mixer.
AB, you've mentioned this. It's you can fire up when you don't even need Replit. You can just go to Cowork and
have your agent call my agent.
Yeah.
Let's give it a try. All right. I'm going to do it.
I'll do some good product. Okay. This is just going to be a little bit of a pastiche, if that's okay.
This is a good travel.
This is a travel.
Good product.
Well, I did on my travels. I did just finish this book, The Wizard of the Kremlin.
Okay.
Have you read it? I would highly recommend it because it's really about the making of Putin and explains
real
things
underdog
like
story.
Why Russians are, still nostalgic for tyrants like Stalin.
They've had them throughout their history. There's certain peoples that are attracted to the...
It's all about the narrative apparatus behind the Kremlin. And a big part of that is the importance of war as a fundamental part of the narrative.
Russians are fascinating. I mean, they've got they're great at science, they're great at art,
recommend
culture.
This book, The Wizard of the Kremlin, highly recommended. Okay, so what I have to offer you, we kind of touched on this at the beginning. I think that no town on the planet, as far as you could take issue with this, but nobody really competes in food depth, quality, range of choice, and just like overall service execution as New York. There's no other place that I found that's better. There's great things in every city, but New York's the best. There's so many good restaurants in New York, it's not funny. But if you're traveling, you can always find something delightful, but what you have to do is stick to the thing that they do best. So, for example, for lunch today, I went to a bar in Dublin and I had Guinness stew, beef stew, right, with a little pastry on top and potatoes on the side and a big tall glass of Guinness, and I chit-chatted with the bartender, and nothing beats that. It's literally the best. Food is super satisfied with the food, with the company, with the hospitality, with the whole thing. And it's like going to Kronenhall in Zurich, right? If you want a roasty and some veal and some gravy, there's nothing better. And you can look at the Picasso at the sort of Nazi-esque restaurant. It's perfect. And so you got to find the great places that match the city. But one thing that you go to London for, and I'm delighted with this new happening in New York City, is you go to London for Indian food, obviously. And
this is not new, Troy.
No, this is not new. This is not new.
Troy discovers that London has Indian food.
Stop it. That's not what I'm saying. There's a new restaurant in New York that just opened on February 11th, which I can't wait to go to, which is called Ambassador's Clubhouse. It's in Nomad, and it's the people from Gymkhana in London. And they also have a great place in London called Brigadier's, and it's really, 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 really good Indian food. And if we can transplant any of that great kind of Punjabi culture in the kitchen to New York City at the level of London, it's going to be a great thing. Lastly, what I will say is, so what did I just mention, right? I said, Kronenhall in Zurich and a nice pub in Dublin. But, this new beverage that I've been pushing is live, effective today. Espo is live. Espo is the two guys from Refinery 29 and a new partner of theirs, Philip and Justin, discovered that a sort of tonic soda, coffee and tonic inspired drink is one of the true great kind of cold beverages to jazz up your afternoon and give you a little energy. They created this drink. Full disclosure, I am an investor in the company. It's live now, and I think you should order it. You can get it on TikTok shops, or you can just order a case of it from Drink Espo or something like that. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So Philip and Justin, for those, they're the two of the co-founders of Refinery 29. So any journalist out there, there's a great story to be written reporting on those who escaped media and what they're doing now, where they've ended up. Like, where's Pete Cashmore? What's he up to? One of the Mike guys is curing cancer. Better business.
what was the name of that company, Nate, that sold his company to Google? It was
The DSP?
Yeah,
Invite Media.
Invite
Yeah, he's
Media.
curing cancer too.
They already cured cancer. He's now doing trading cards.
Oh yeah, so he went right by. Yeah, no, they had a massive exit with the cancer company. Turned out it was better than
Flatiron Health, it was called.
trafficking banner ads below the fold.
That's like a whole nother gambling thing that you should go on, Brian, this trading card thing, because that's effectively what these marketplaces have become.
Well, again,
another-
everything is just unregulated gambling. I'm convinced that's propping up our economy. One thing on the restaurant front, I do think that it is good to go to a local place when you're traveling. I find it really difficult though, with the fact that, and I'll bring you in on this because I blame PE, AB, is any restaurant that is really good, a local restaurant, ends up being everywhere. Like you can't just have like a good restaurant that stays in a location. I see this all the time in Miami. It's like, oh, there's a great Chinese restaurant in Toronto. It's in Miami all of a sudden. And they're always like kind of inferior versions of it. So like Dishoom, you'd go to London, go to it in Shoreditch or whatever. Now it's in New York. Like it's too ubiquitous. There's too much of
post-COVID, the margin compress, like having one good restaurant is not profitable. I mean, David Chang says this all the time. You have to make there has to be other ways to make money in food besides just having a couple good restaurants. It's not big enough of a
he went into
business.
CPG entirely, right? Like, I mean, I know.
But
yeah, I went to one of his places in Las Vegas, actually. So, see, it's everywhere. All right, let's leave it there.
That's it for this episode of People versus Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Nice one. Thank you, Brian.
Good episode.
Thank you, AB.
I'm looking forward to Alex being back next week.